Have you ever witnessed a miracle? Have you ever had a miracle happen to you? Well, we're going to talk about miracles today. And first I got to give you the definition of a miracle. Now this comes out of Webster. A miracle is a natural but unusual event commanded when time required. An event that contradicts the laws of science and nature. Heck, I'm a miracle. Jesus loves me. That's a miracle in itself. Today I want to share a story with you that's in the Bible, and I call it the miracle of the fish sandwich. This happened right after John the Baptist was beheaded. This is how miracles happen to you and to me. And the people saw them going. This was Jesus and the disciples. And they ran ahead of them together on foot from all the cities and got there ahead of them. I'm in chapter 6 of Mark, the 33rd verse. Verse 34, when Jesus went ashore, he saw a large crowd, and he felt compassion for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. And when it was already quite late, his disciples came to him and said, "This place is desolate, and it's already quite late. Send these people away so that they may go into the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat." Now, here comes the part where you and I can have miracles. And Jesus answered them, that's the disciples, and said, "You give them something to eat." See, if we're not careful, and we hear this story, and it's the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000. Actually, it's more than 5,000. There was 5,000 men, it said. If we're not careful, we just think about the miracle and how wonderful Jesus is, and he's teaching us, and he's teaching his disciples at the same time how to perform and allow God to work in their life a miracle. So the disciples are going, we're hungry, they're hungry, send them away so they can get something to eat. And Jesus says, you give them something to eat. Have you ever been where I've been and waited for somebody else to do something when you knew you were supposed to do something? And they said to him, that's the disciples, "Shall we go and spend 200 denarii on bread and give them something to eat?" And he said to them, "How many loaves do you have? Go look." Jesus says, go look to find what you need. And start with what you have. That's pretty simple, isn't it? Sometimes in my life I go, why don't you go look? Well, Jesus says to his disciples, go look and see what you have. And when they found out, they said 5 loaves and 2 fish. And he commanded them all to sit down by groups on the green grass. And they sat down in groups of hundreds and of 50s. I guess today, in today's world, it would be groups of 10 if they would allow it. And he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up toward heaven, he blessed the food and broke the loaves, and he kept giving them to the disciples to set before them. And he divided up the 2 fish among them all. What does that have to do with the miracle? Listen, it's not that just Jesus took the food, the bread and the fish, and started dividing it, and they just kept coming back and getting more and more and more. Jesus says to me and to you, give me what you have. And they all ate and were satisfied. You see, God will use what you have if you give it to them to supply what you need and more. And they picked up 12 full baskets of the broken pieces and also of the fish, and there were 5,000 men who ate the loaves. Then immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side. Now, why did that happen? Why did Jesus immediately, he says immediately, he told the disciples, get in the boat, go to the other side. I'm going to tell you why. He had just blessed them, and they picked up the surplus. See, when you give God what you have, and you expect him to perform, he's not only going to perform, but he's going to have a surplus and give you a surplus afterwards. I'm sure the disciples felt pretty good about themselves too. And I'm sure that's why Jesus said, get in the boat, go the other side. And this is another gospel according to Blake. He didn't want them to get haughty. He didn't want them to get big-headed. He wanted them out of there immediately, because one day old fish stinks.